In the aftermath of a school shooting in the Philippines that killed 3 students and injured 20 more, the nation's politicians are now discussing possibly lowering the age of criminal responsibility for teenagers. Now, one of the shooters, a 15-year-old, is facing multiple counts of murder for his actions, while the other gunman, who is only 14, will be charged as an adult and will instead avoid serious punishment. The fact that the younger of the two will be treated differently has sparked outrage among victims' parents. Now, according to Philippine law, criminal liability only begins after a person reaches the age of 15, while individuals under that age are sent for rehabilitation. Now, current legislation also allows teenagers aged 15 to 18 to be exempt if it cannot be proven that they were, quote, aware of the wrongness of their crime. Now, this tragedy has spurred Philippine politicians to consider lowering the age of responsibility to 13, 12, or even 9 years of age. Now, to get more on this, let's cross now live to my guests that I have here. Jose Mario de Vega is a professor at Philippine Normal University. I also have Ana Malindog Uy, vice president at the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute. I'm glad to have you both join me right now. Ana, let me start with you here. So, what do you think about the initiative to lower the age of criminal liability in the Philippines? What are the reasons for such a proposal?
I think, yes, and as far as I'm concerned, I agree with lowering the age of criminal responsibility for children, especially when it comes to heinous crimes or heinous offenses, because I think this is very important at the moment, and for this kind of children who commit heinous crime to be accountable. However, because at the moment when you talk about accountability mechanism, our current laws are insufficient. However, I don't agree with lowering it too much, like 9 or 12. If you ask me, I would agree at around the right age, as far as I'm concerned, is 14 years old. Only for serious crimes, and of course there should be strict discernment, and of course there should be intervention like rehabilitation and no adult imprisonment. And even the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has encouraged states to set the minimum age of accountability for children who commit crimes at 14, but of course they encourage to have it higher. But as far as I'm concerned, 14 I think is the best age. But yes, I agree with lowering the criminal age or criminal responsibility of children, especially those who commit heinous crime, but still under safeguards like intervention, rehabilitation, value transformation, and should not be when they're in prison, they should not be merged with adult criminals. Yeah.
Okay, Jose, let me come to you now. What are the repercussions of lowering the age of criminal liability? What problems do you foresee if this change were to occur?
Are you now asking me?
Yes, Jose, I'm asking you now.
Okay, thank you. Despite the concession of my illustrious colleague, I respectfully disagree because 2 points. One, the Philippines is signatory to the UN Convention of the Rights of the Children. And also have a disagreement with their statement with regard to the UNICEF. The UNICEF urged member states not to lower the age of criminal responsibility, but to maintain it as it is. Because this one will violate international law and local law. We have the Republic Act 9344, which they want to amend and change it. So to me, if you will lower it, it will lead to further injustice because these kids who are doing these crimes are more often than not coming from marginalized communities. So we have to look at the root cause of the problem. The problem is social justice, the culture of impunity, the systemic corruption of the country. This is just a distraction and a diversion, in my view.
All right, Ana, do you have any response to this? Because Jose is talking about both international and local laws.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying, and I agree to a some extent that when you talk about the context of the Philippines, it's not as if like you can blame children who commit crimes, because there are other factors to it. However, when I say that I agree to lowering the criminal responsibility of children, I have what you call condition to it. What I'm referring to is lower it to 14 as far as I'm concerned, and make it sure that it's only pertaining to heinous crimes, not necessarily to petty crimes. Because I believe that a child at the age of 14 is not anymore as if he does not understand what is wrong and what is right. I think that age already has some kind of discernment and understand what is, if he is committing correct things or wrong or bad behaviors, or especially heinous crimes. So that is my point. But I'm not saying that petty crimes, children who commit petty crimes should be in prison in that sense. Or I don't think so. So that is my point and stand on this issue, because I believe that not all children, especially in the context as well of the Philippines, are innocent at all. But yes, the context of the Philippines is a very different one, and I think because of poverty, hardships, and sometimes children are capitalized and being mobilized to do crimes for adults. So what I'm also saying is like those who are adults also who are using children to commit this kind of grave crimes should be accountable as well. But for me, I think lowering it to 14, I would agree with it. I would concede to that.
All right. You'll say, I'm coming to you now. So in the shooting that occurred last week in the Philippines, the criminals were themselves victims of bullying and of online hate group that instigated the shooting. So why do you think the focus of the public discussion is the age of the criminals rather than the dangers of online hate groups and bullying?
That's the point, brother. Because in my view, these are all diversion and distraction. Those assailants are also victims. So this society who produce these bullies, these arrogant people, but we cannot reduce the issue to online games, violent online games, irresponsible parents with children. The problem is the whole social system. But to go back to that point that raised by my colleague, she agrees on the 14. The problem is, according to empirical evidence and scientific studies, development of the brain of our toddlers, especially of these teenagers or preteens, develop at the age of 16 to 17. So I will disagree with that 14. Based on the eyes of the law, based on the UN Convention on the Rights of the Children, it's still a violation. Still a violation of the local law. So I will disagree with that to lower it to 14. Because if you will lower it to 14, then you also have to lower the age of the children when they can marry. Is that the point? to be consistent about it. You get the point. 18, you can run, you can vote, you can be voted, you can go to war. You can be sued and be sued. So we will lower it at 14. And then what will happen? All the kids there who are unruly and rascal will go to jails. And some more, because this country is engrossed in super corruption, we don't have a rehabilitation center for children. So what are we going to do? Merge them with the hardened criminals? So these jails will become school for future criminals. So it's a social problem. That's the bottom line.
All right, Anna, let me ask you from the point that Yose is making here. Now, he is connecting this idea of the law to issues of voting age, marriage age, or even employment and labor age, as the case may be. There are restrictions concerning all of this as far as international law is concerned. Do you see all of these things connecting each other here, Anna?
Well, if you really look at the context of the Philippines, and when you talk about children committing crimes, and what he is pointing, when my colleague is pointing out that, in the Philippines, the situation is not as if like children are just committing crimes just because they want it, but it's a product as well of the kind of society that we have, which is true enough. My colleague have also said, in a way, yes, everything is interconnected. However, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is not all children children as well who commit crimes, you can really say that they don't know what they're doing, because I don't believe in it. But what I'm saying is, yes, lower the criminal accountability of children, but not necessarily, but with safeguard, and only pertaining to heinous crimes, really, really, grave crimes. And there are always parameters to that. I'm not referring to all crimes, but heinous crimes. And also, there should be mandatory discernment assessment when you talk about this. They should not be detained in adult jails or police cells. Automatic legal counsel, parental guardian notification, mandatory rehabilitation, education, psychological care, and reintegration plan. These are safeguards when you do that. However, in our society, it is easier said than done. That is also, I would agree with my colleague, because in our society, there's really a lot of problem. Even when you talk about rehabilitation center, that's a challenge. Even having a prison that you can separate actually adult from children, that is still a challenge. So it's all interconnected, and it cannot be singled out on issue of policy or laws. It has to be taken into the society and the kind of problems that we have, poverty and all of this social menace. Social issues in the country should be taken into consideration. But if you ask me only if I am in favor of lowering the criminal age responsibility of children who commit heinous crime, yes, I am. But again, there should be some kind of guardrails to it. There should be a recalibration of policy, and it should only for heinous crime. Other crimes, no, I don't agree with it. That's my point.
So there are issues of context here, if I
Yes.
get what you're saying. So, but Anna, let me stay with you on this, because I need to get your perspective to this question. Now, if the initiative gets more supporters, Anna, what positive outcomes, if any, can we expect? Will it help with reducing crime rates among teenagers?
Not necessarily, to be frank with you. Though if you specifically ask me if I'm in favor of lowering the criminal age of responsibility on heinous crime, I agree with it. But to be very frank with you, even if this kind of legislative measure will be passed, I don't really see that that children, or especially children who are poor, will have this, will, in terms of committing crimes, even petty crimes, will lower in terms of rate. No, I don't really see it. It will not necessarily have really a good, a tangible result, precisely because the factors why children are committing crimes in the Philippines are still there. So there are root causes to all of these things. And I think that should be the first priority to be addressed by the Philippine government. And many of these are social issues, like, for example, poverty, access to education, access to, value transformation, and giving the children the opportunity to have, to have opportunity to be educated properly. All of these things are factors that needs to be considered. So if you ask me if this will result tangibly, if there would be a law passed in the Philippines lowering the age, the criminal responsibility of children, yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't really see that it will, deliver tangible result in terms of lowering the rate of crimes committed by children. Because really, to be frank, the bottom line is the kind of society that we have, the challenges that we have when you talk about social issues, especially when you talk about poverty, and even when you talk about, how to properly guide our children, even in schools. These things are present. These are the first things that need to be addressed by the government and, of course, by the Filipino people in terms of, being there for children. So that is my stand and my analysis on all of these things.
All right. Yossi, I see you're shaking your head. You're agreeing with a lot of the points that Anna is making. But let me ask you this now. What needs to be done in order to ensure that such crimes as this school shooting will not happen again, Yossi?
Again, let's go back to the root cause of the issue. As my colleague has already given us the concession, technically she conceded already. The problem is the social system. We want those children criminals to go to jail. But I will ask you, how about those big politicians who are engaged in the Parmali super scam during the pandemic? This flood control, your reporters are there in Manila for the last, 1 week? Massive corruptions. So are we going to send them to jail also, or only these children? That's the point there. When it comes to children, kids club. When it comes to the big fishes, investigation, press conference, investigate. You know what I mean? So if you will apply this rule to these children, apply it also to these old criminals, no? So that there will be true equalization of the execution of justice. But the problem is even the justice system of this country is shallow and weak, as you can see in the case of Duterte, who's facing trial at the International Criminal Court. So that's the thing there.
Okay. All right. We have to leave it here now. We have to leave it here now because of time. Thank you so much. Jose Mario de Vega, professor at Philippine Normal University. Thank you so much. And Ana Malindogui, vice president at the Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies Institute. Thank you all for your insights here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, stay tuned as we bring you more updates, details, and reaction on news from around the world. I'll see you again.